You are watching this video because we've owned the BMW G20 320i for 4 years at this point, and presumably you're wondering what our ownership journey has looked like. So, in the first part of this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about its practicality, its features. I'm going to brake boost it, and then tell you what it'll cost to own. In the second part of the video, I'll also share with you what our ownership journey has been like, including what went wrong. To be honest, there really isn't much, but I'll still share the very little that I have with you. This vehicle has given me way less content than what I would have hoped for, ideally, which I guess is a good problem to have. Welcome to the 4-year review. Let's get started. Car Talks. Power, precision, performance. The 320i is powered by the B48 engine, which it shares with the 330i, although in a lower stage of tune. Essentially, it's a 2-liter inline 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine producing 135 kilowatts and 300 newton meters of torque. Power is sent to the rear wheels only via an 8-speed ZF automatic gearbox with brake boost. It weighs 1.5 tons and will do the 0 to 100 km per hour sprint in a claimed 7.1 seconds. So that's 0.3 seconds faster than the LCI. I don't know how BMW managed to make the LCI slower with the same power output and similar curb weight, but you will never get that answer out of them. Now, this doesn't have launch control, but you can brake boost it, and the best time to actually do that is when the tank is on reserve, because fuel adds weight. Anyway, to brake boost it, you will need to have the vehicle on sport mode. ESC on sport traction. Then shift the gearbox into sport as well. Left foot hard on the brake. Right foot hard on the accelerator and build revs up to about 2,500 RPM. And then let go of the brake pedal. Now, you may have some wheel spin, especially if the tires are still cold, but as long as the engine doesn't bog down, then it'll still be a pretty solid launch within 1/10 of a second from the claim time. Moving on to practicality and features, you get 480 liters worth of boot capacity. Comparatively, the new Audi A5 gets 445 liters, while the Mercedes-Benz C-Class gets 455 liters. So despite having the smallest boot on paper at least, the Audi A5 has the most practical boot due to the hatchback design, whereas sedans have a metal ridge up top, which makes the shape of the boot less practical. Nevertheless, you get a 40-20-40 rear bench split configuration with through loading. And just out of curiosity, my wife and I keep a few Woolies bags in the car because we have hundreds of these at home and we always forget them. So she came up with this brilliant idea, and so far so good. The tailgate is manually operated, as it should be for a sedan. Coming around to the rear cabin, you get Sensatec leather and Alcantara seats with blue stitching. And Sensatec is basically BMW speak for artificial leather. You get a center armrest with 2 cup holders neatly tucked away. And what I'm finding is that more and more new cars are leaving the cup holders completely exposed, and it's honestly a pet peeve of mine. You get ISOFIX anchor points to safely mount your child's seat. And speaking of safety, the G20 gets 8 airbags and a 5-star Euro NCAP rating. You get full aircon in the rear, and that's because the vehicle comes with 3-zone climate control. Interestingly, this has no USB ports in the rear, which is a missed opportunity. And although this was an optional extra back then, a lot of these examples that were built around COVID left the factory without any USB ports in the rear due to microchip shortages. As always, I'm 1.78 meters tall or 5'10", and I'm quite comfortable sitting behind my driving position because the front seats have a clever cutout behind them to give you more knee room. Without this cutout, I think it would have been a close call. Stepping into the front cabin, you get the M Sport insignia on the door sills. You then get manually operated Sensatec leather and Alcantara seats, which is diabolical for a vehicle that carries a 1 million rand retail price brand new. Nevertheless, these are incredibly comfortable and they cushion you in place. These also come with the under-thigh support extensions, which really come in handy on a long road trip. But bear in mind that food particles can get stuck in between there, which is why I'm not a fan of eating in the car. You get a sunroof with slide and tilt function and black roof lining to give the vehicle a more premium look. And don't ask me why it's not a panoramic sunroof, send that question to BMW. Storage space is pretty decent in the cubbyhole. You also have more storage under the center armrest that comes with a USB-C port. You get 2 cup holders, a wireless charger, a 12-volt socket, and a USB Type-A port neatly tucked away, which is one of my pet peeves with some of the Chinese vehicles. Why is your wireless charger exposed to the sun and thieves? You still had the iDrive 7 infotainment system in this generation that came with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And I quite like this operating system more than the newer ones because you've got physical climate control buttons. The only thing I don't like about it, I suppose, is that the instrument cluster is a bit dark and dingy. But otherwise, the resolution itself is spot on and you can clearly see all of the pertinent information. This particular unit is fitted with BMW's native sound system, so not the Harman Kardon. And to hear how that sounds, I posted a sound test earlier this week, so head over to my YouTube shorts. In summary, the balance of the sound is absolutely spot on. When it comes to interior build quality, the 3 Series is the best in its class. Looks-wise, the C-Class has a more upmarket looking interior, but those plastics will start to creak within the first 10,000 kilometers. Whereas the 3 Series still feels how it felt on day one, 4 years later with no rattles or creaks. So on build quality alone, at least for me, I would place the 3 Series at number 1, the Audi A5 at a very close second place, and the C-Class in third position. Before we get to driving dynamics, if you're enjoying these videos, then please go ahead and smash the subscribe button to become a part of the family. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so that you don't miss a single one of our epic reviews. Welcome aboard the G20 320i pre-facelift, and in terms of driving dynamics, this makes 300 Newton meters of torque, well, at least on paper, which is not a whole lot, but it makes peak torque from a very low 1,350 RPM, one of the lowest in the world for any production petrol engine. So all of the torque is available from basically idle. It also delivers peak torque all the way up to 4,000 RPM, so it's got a very wide and linear power band with a punchy mid-range, which makes driving around town and merging into traffic seamless without having to rev out the engine. The B48 engine carries the same design architecture as the B58 engine that you find in the M340i with the twin-scroll turbo, but with 2 less cylinders of course, so if you look at its torque and power curves, it deploys power in a similar manner. You can be in 6th gear at 2000 RPM and it'll pull like a freight train. And because of that punchy mid-range, it makes the vehicle feel like it's producing much more than 135 kilowatts. And at speeds above 80 kilometers per hour, you can properly take care of Golf 8 GTIs. I know I've put a few to shame myself. It also means that the B48 is a very reliable and bulletproof engine, but we'll get into reliability a bit later. In terms of suspension feel, the M Sport suspension is pretty rough around the edges on the 3 Series because you feel every bump on the road and it's quite jittery even on comfort mode. This is also sitting on 19-inch run flat tires, which doesn't make things particularly better. Now if you're really pushing this on a back road somewhere, then there's no other vehicle more engaging in its class. It corners really flat with virtually no body roll and it just hugs the road. And that ZF gearbox is a thing of beauty because it knows precisely what gear you should be in all of the time. But if you're just looking for a vehicle to drive to the office every day, unfortunately the suspension might be a deal breaker for some people. I absolutely adore the characteristics of it, but the reality is that it's not going to appeal to everybody's taste. You've got 3 drive modes in here, namely Eco Pro, Comfort, and Sport. You also have an additional individual mode that allows you to independently alter the steering, suspension, and engine between Eco Pro, Comfort, and Sport. which is a good thing because you can have all of the settings in sport and then leave the steering in comfort, because it can feel artificially heavy in sport. The G20 comes with a 2-year unlimited kilometer warranty and a 5-year 100,000 kilometer motor plan that covers services, brake pads, brake discs, and wiper blades, amongst other components. So in the first 5 years of ownership, your only other significant cost is fuel, apart from finance and insurance. Claimed fuel consumption is 6.3 liters per 100 kilometers on the combined cycle, and we've achieved a long-term average of 8.4 liters per 100 kilometers over the last 4 years. So based on experience, I would say you can expect figures as low as 5 liters to the 100 on the freeway, cruising at 120 kilometers per hour, and as high as 11 liters to the 100 in stop-start traffic. In terms of the exterior finish, this has the optional M Sport package finished in Portimao blue, which you cannot get in a non-M Sport 3 Series. This also has the Shadowline trim, which blacks out the grille, side mirror caps, and the dual tailpipes, amongst others. And that right there would be the infamous Hofmeister King. Other highlight features include the live cockpit professional instrument cluster and the larger 10.25-inch infotainment screen. The standard cockpit came with these rather nasty half-analog, half-digital gauges and a smaller infotainment screen. You get BMW's intelligent personal assistant, so by using the Hey BMW prompt, you can command the vehicle to perform various functions like opening the sunroof, for instance. You get non-adaptive cruise control, although you could get adaptive cruise control as an optional extra, park distance control in the rear and the front with a reversing camera, and Park Assistant Professional, which means the vehicle can park itself. Moving on to pricing and cost of ownership, when it comes to luxury German vehicles, your best friend is depreciation, because we bought this as an 8-month-old demo for 710,000 rands, when the price of a brand new example with the same spec was 913,000 rands from factory. So in effect, by waiting a few months and scouting the market, we were able to save 203,000 rands, or a whopping 22% in depreciation. I believe these are now retailing for around 500,000 rands for decent low mileage examples with a slight balance of motor plan, so now is also a good time to buy, but it goes without saying that you need to factor in the cost of extending the motor plan. I did a full cost of ownership analysis in last year's 3-year review, including fuel, insurance, tire replacement costs, and motor plan extension costs. So in the interest of time, please do go back and watch that video. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Moving on to the second part of this video, which is our overall ownership experience with the G20 over the last 4 years. It has honestly been a dream, and I think that this is the longest I've ever owned a vehicle, because time flies when your car is problem-free, and the years just seem to roll into one another. But having said that, no car is perfect, so these are some of the things that have gone wrong during our ownership tenure, most of which have nothing to do with the vehicle directly and could have happened to any other vehicle. Number 1 would be the small dent on the left rear door. Someone randomly bumped their door on mine in a parking lot in East London and fled the scene. Now, I don't trust many workshops with Portimao blue because I've seen how cars that have been resprayed look. But if this was a much bigger dent, then I would have probably claimed from insurance and insisted on getting a brand new door, color-coded from factory. Problem number 2, if you've watched the 3-year review or any road trip that we've been on with the G20, then you would have probably noticed that the vehicle had a cracked windscreen, which we've managed to fix in collaboration with BSG Autoglass. So that's all sorted now. The third issue is the rim rash, which was also there in the 3-year review, but it was just one rim back then, and that was from a genuine bumping of the curb. This time around, all of the rims share the same fate, and surprisingly, it's not from us bumping the curb, but from tire fitment centers having questionable practices. Someone from a certain tire fitment center failed to protect the rim when removing the tire from the rim. So yeah, just watch these people like a hawk when they change your tires so that they don't damage your rims. What you will also notice is that a brand new set of Pirelli P0s are now back on the vehicle. And that's because the motor plan will expire in July of this year, which means when that time comes, I will have either extended the motor plan or sold the vehicle. And if I am floating the idea of selling the vehicle, then I want everything back to OEM spec, including the tires. Speaking of the motor plan, the vehicle was due for its last service under the current motor plan contract, so I booked it in. And the reason I say it's the last service is because the service interval of the 320i is 20,000 kilometers. So there's virtually no way I can complete another 20,000 kilometers by the end of July when the motor plan expires. But when it comes to mileage, we are nowhere near the 100,000 kilometer mark, but the wording of the contract is the earlier of 5 years or 100,000 kilometers. So while the vehicle was in for service, I asked them to check the aircon for any leaks, which leads us to the fourth and final issue, because the last time I regassed the aircon was in December of 2024 at BMW East London. So the fact that it was out of gas already was concerning to me because it had only been a year. As always, upon arrival, I did the obligatory walk around to ensure the vehicle doesn't come back to me with any new nicks and dings. And then I left the keys with one of the consultants. But before I did that, I took note of the mileage, and as you can see, we are comfortably below 70,000 kilometers. And while I was waiting for my lift, I had a quick look around the dealership and I found a 2025 X3 M50 with only 4,000 kilometers on the clock for 1.65 million rands. And a 2024 X5 M60i with 23,000 kilometers on the clock for 1.85 million rands. I also found a 2021 M4 Coupe with the M bucket seats, decently priced at 1.3 million rands, but my only issue was the mileage. I honestly can't sell a car with 69,000 kilometers on the clock for a car with 88,000 kilometers on the clock. That would just be working backwards. But anyway, this M4 no longer exists because a certain YouTuber has written it off already. My lift home finally arrived and it was the BMW X1. A vehicle I've overlooked since forever, but turned out to be exceptional. It's actually roomier in the rear than my 3 Series, and this unit is fitted with the Harman Kardon sound system. So do let me know in the comments if you'd like me to review an X1 on the channel.
A few moments later.
So the service was done, they had regassed the aircon and no leaks were identified, but they did add some dye in the gas cylinder so that if there is a leak somewhere, then the dye will cause a stain at the exit point of the leak. So they said I should bring the vehicle in after 1,000 kilometers of driving to recheck the issue. Right now, it's only been 1 week since the service, and as you can see, the engine bay is as dry as a whistle with no apparent leaks of gas. Which admittedly is a good thing, but I'm also concerned as to why I need to regas the aircon almost annually at this rate for a vehicle that sits in the garage for weeks at a time because we both work from home. But other than these few minor issues, the engine and the vehicle overall is honestly bulletproof. I've never had any issues with it, it's never stopped on the side of the road, I don't know the VIN number off by heart, and most importantly, I don't have any mechanics on speed dial. Now, every OEM has 1 or 2 lemons that come off the production line, so I cannot guarantee anything, and I cannot speak on behalf of the OEM, because your ownership experience can be a complete nightmare compared to mine. But I do believe that if you get the B48 as brand new, or as a low mileage demo and stick to the maintenance schedule religiously, then on a balance of probabilities, it won't let you down. That is the long and the short of it. The next time I make this type of review on the G20 will be at the 5-year mark if we haven't sold the vehicle by then. And that brings us to the end of this video. Now, if you are a BMW fanboy or fangirl, please leave a blue heart in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.